What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 364 of AskGSM here today for Wednesday, November 18th, 2020. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. If you want to send in a question to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights. I forgot last night, I apologize. But even if I don't, you can always drop a question on the wall itself. I will see it, and I will use your question for the show, including here on YouTube. Drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Before we go any further, one quick reminder, I did tweet this out yesterday, but my exclusive interview with SmackDown Women's Champion Sasha Banks going live on Friday on Bleacher Report and right here on the channel. So that is very exciting. I'm very much looking forward to you guys hearing that, seeing it in article form, in audio form, whatever. The audio was not the greatest. Their audio quality was great. I don't know if it was on my end or her end, but the call did cut out at certain points. It was kind of hard to pick out what she was saying. It did happen quite a bit, unfortunately, but the overall interview was still very, very good. So you guys could check that out in audio form. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties in advance, but it still is the boss at the end of the day, the SmackDown Women's Champion and the star of The Mandalorian coming off of last week's episode. So she had a lot to talk about. We talked about all that stuff, including Survivor Series, her feud with Bayley, Hell in a Cell, and so much more. Check it out this Friday, both on Bleacher Report and right here on the channel. All the more reason to subscribe, by the way. We've had 2 episodes, 2 videos a day going out for the last couple of days, last Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, today, tomorrow, Friday, and every other day for the foreseeable future. There's just so much content out there right now between everything going up on the network, my own interviews, hashtag AskGSM, this very show, Ms. and Mrs., Total Bellas, and so much more. So if you haven't already, please subscribe, hit that bell button, and be notified every time a new video goes up. So we're going to start off here with No Laura from YouTube. Their question was, very fitting with Survivor Series being this Sunday, but who do you think is Mr. Survivor Series? The Undertaker or Randy Orton? Good question, but it's got to be Randy Orton. When I think Survivor Series, honestly, not one superstar, like not any one certain superstar comes to mind, but Orton would come to mind more often than Taker. I know Taker debuted at the show 30 years ago. He's had success at the show. What other memorable moments, though, has he been involved in at the event that I'm not thinking of? I know that he debuted in 90. I'm sure he was a part of a few other matches and whatnot. After that, I know he actually beat Hulk Hogan for the WWE Championship at the pay-per-view itself in 91 before losing it at Taboo Tuesday 2 days later. Or not Taboo Tuesday. It was like this Tuesday in Texas or whatever. I don't remember after that what other matches he had at the show. I'm trying to think right now. Like, obviously, he's competed at Survivor Series a bunch. I remember the casket match he had with Big Show in 2008. I remember him retaining the World Heavyweight Championship in 2009. 2010, he wasn't there. I don't think. No, he wasn't there in 2010. Wasn't there in 2011. He wasn't at another Survivor Series until 2015 when he and Kane teamed up to take on the Brothers of Destruction. They are the Brothers of Destruction, to take on the Wyatt family, and they beat them there too. I know he and I think Batista actually had a Hell in a Cell match there in 2007. So he's been a part of a number of matches and has won a lot at the event. He returned in 2005 at the pay-per-view. I don't think, was he there in 2006? I don't remember. And as for the other years, I don't think he was there. He was there in 2003, I think. I think he lost to Vince McMahon, actually, in the Buried Alive match. So he has won his fair share of matches at the event, but I don't really think of Survivor Series and think of The Undertaker. I know, again, he debuted at the event. He's had success there, but Randy Orton is Mr. Survivor Series. Between all the success he had there between 2003 and 2005, he's been a part of WWE Championship matches at the event before. He's been the sole survivor of various different years. He's been a part of a lot of great matches at the event. He really is, to me, Mr. Survivor Series. For Taker, I think of more WrestleMania than I do Survivor Series. Not even that Taker is Mr. WrestleMania, because I think that nickname is already occupied by Shawn Michaels. But with the streak and whatnot, I associate the Undertaker more with WrestleMania than I do Survivor Series. So I would give that spot to Randy Orton. Emmanuel A. from YouTube, his question was, I usually don't like to ask about him, but did you hear Jim Cornette's thoughts on the Young Bucks versus FTR? because apparently he said that what AEW should have done for their first ever match of Full Gear was have FTR stiff and sandbag the Young Bucks, not going along with their shit, quote unquote, ending with a shoot small package pin where the referee reluctantly counts for FTR because they're so much stronger than the Bucks. This scenario would have had everyone asking if FTR really screwed over AEW as they hold the belts hostage to drive their price up before returning. I did not hear that. I do listen to a lot of his clips, a lot of his stuff that he says. I mean, he just says a lot of outrageous shit, but he also has a lot of good points on certain things too. I know he's a very polarizing figure. A lot of people have a lot of negative stuff to say about him, and in a lot of cases, rightfully so. But he does make some good cases about AEW. I know he's very against the product and a lot of the people there, including the Bucks and Omega and people like that. There's very few people, on the show right now in AEW that I think he actually likes. I know he likes FTR, and I think he likes Hangman. So anyway, I didn't hear that comment. I didn't hear that clip about the match. I think that would be incredibly stupid, because I don't think anyone gives a fuck about FTR trying to sandbag the Bucks and whatnot. I know they've kind of made comments about that on Jim Cornette's podcast and in other interviews. They've kind of played it up as being real, the heat between the two teams. The fact of the matter is this: if there was any real, actual, genuine, major animosity between the two sides, they would not be working a program right now, I don't think. I don't think Tony Khan would be putting FTR in there with the Bucks. They wouldn't have signed them. It's a friendly rivalry. It's all mostly storyline, I would assume. They've wanted to work together for the longest time. Their first ever match was as great as I expected it to be. They had a lot to live up to. Was it a match of the year contender? I would say so. Was it the match of the year? I don't think so. I think the Revolution match might get the slight edge, but the match was great. It was pretty slow for the early goings, but once they eventually worked into that pace and kind of built it up and whatnot, it turned into an excellent match. It was an awesome match. And the Bucks winning, the only thing I didn't like about the match was this stipulation and the fact that Matt Jackson, I think it was, won with the single super kick. I didn't love that. I know the whole, we did a flip when we weren't supposed to thing for FTR. I like that. But the one super kick after they did everything else in their arsenal, I thought was a little silly. Otherwise, I love the match. The stipulation was stupid, but again, whatever. I think going the way that Cornette suggested it, he fucking hates Vince Russo. That sounds like something that Vince Russo would book. Honestly, we saw back in WCW, they did a lot of, the finger poke of doom and the title change where, a lot of it was, some of it was shoot, some of it was a work, where they try to make you think, oh, it's a work, let's get people talking. In certain cases, that might work, no pun intended. Here, I just think that would have been incredibly disappointing, where they try to stiff on the Bucks. No one in their right mind would think that was actually real. The stuff with Ivelisse and Thunder Rosa was pretty genuine from what I could tell. Because Ivelisse, I believe, has a history of working not just stiff, but having not a great attitude about certain things. So that I could believe was real. I don't think that was a work. FTR and the Bucks, they wouldn't put these fucking guys in there if they were just going to stiff on each other the entire time. And more often than not, that shit doesn't make for a good match. Not everything's about a good match. It's also about having a good story. But that match they did have instead had all of that. It had a great story, great drama. The build was lackluster, but it lived up to the hype nonetheless, and it was a great match. The title change felt like a big deal. Going the way that Jim Cornette suggested sounds incredibly stupid. And again, not everything he says is dumb. I think there's a lot of good points he makes about wrestling and specifically AEW. There's a lot of stuff I agree with, and he'll tear them apart when they need to be, when they need to be torn apart, stuff like that. But this I thought was just really stupid. Oh, are they going to come back and they're going to hold the titles hostage? Who fucking cares? I mean, would anyone really give a fuck about that? We know that FTR would be back. We know that there's no animosity there between the two sides. It just wouldn't make for very good TV. That would just kind of be stupid. If it really was a work at the end of the day, I think that'd be really dumb. So thankfully, they did not do that. That's why Jim Cornette does not work on creative in AEW. Brandon A. from YouTube, his question was, or a couple things before he gets to the questions, he says, "What's up, GSM? I know it's been a while since I sent in questions. Long story short, when COVID hit, there was no way at that time I could ignore it and not bombard you with questions about it. I absolutely hate the elephant in the room scenarios, and I didn't want to be the guy annoying you with that subject. Afterwards, I kept up with wrestling itself, but limited my intake of podcasts and YouTube just because everything, including other forms of entertainment, felt so trivial. It was a hard balance to strike, but I also didn't want to inundate, I don't know how to pronounce that word, and I'm supposed to be a journalist, myself with just the pandemic as well as the other things in the 2020 dumpster fire. But what can I say? I miss my GSM, so here I am again. I did listen to the first 4 episodes of your MCU rewatch, though, as I very slowly do my own rewatch. Anyway, 2 quick questions, if you will allow me. 1, what have been the biggest bullet points of your wrestling thoughts and channel updates these past 8 months? And 2, for the sake of adding some happiness to life during these crazy times, will you give the Christmas nuts like myself a pass for wanting to start the season early this year, LOL? So a lot to unpack there very quickly, though. We have missed you, Brandon. Thank you for sending in that question, that very nice paragraph. I appreciate that. It has been a very crazy year. I know a lot of people have kind of taken time off from social media, wrestling in general, this channel, stuff like that. So I appreciate you coming back after 8 months. It's been crazy for everyone, some people more than others. So hopefully everyone is staying safe. Hopefully you are as well, Brandon. But what was the other thing I was going to mention? You mentioned how you've just been gone for a little while, but I thought there was something else from your post that I wanted to talk about. I don't remember. You mentioned the MCU rewatch that we did. We actually just finished that up, actually, Chris, the Doc Chris Mueller and I. We actually just finished that a couple of weeks ago. Every MCU movie and all the phase, recaps and whatnot. The ranking of every movie. And now we're on to the Mandalorian reviews, which just came back on Disney+, and that's been a lot of fun, too, to break those down with Chris. So all the episodes of the MCU Rewatch are there, of the Rewatch Review series, here on the channel in its own playlist. You said you watched the first 4. It is cool you're doing your own. That's awesome. But anyway, your first question about my biggest bullet points on wrestling thoughts and channel updates and stuff like that. Wrestling thoughts. Obviously, well, like you said, what I was going to say, I forgot this from you earlier on in your post. You mentioned like COVID, you didn't want to ask about it. That would have been totally fine. We already had a lot of people asking about it anyway. As long as it's not like every question is the same thing here on the show, I will answer multiple questions. If it's like from 2 different people, I will usually answer those same questions, on the same episode, if that makes sense. I would not have been annoyed by that at all. Don't even worry about that. You can ask all the COVID questions you want. I know this is a wrestling-related show, but if you guys have movie questions, I don't talk about politics here on the show, but if it's like COVID-related or, world-related and it's not too polarizing, then I absolutely will talk about it, specifically like movies and shows and stuff like that. So I would not have been annoyed whatsoever. I hope you don't think that. But anyway, as far as wrestling thoughts are concerned, wrestling has not been the same in 2020 without crowds and whatnot. But once you get used to it, it really doesn't bother me as much anymore. With every company, Impact, there was absolutely no fans in attendance. There has been no fans in attendance for months now, since April. But they still put out quality content. AEW is slowly but surely welcoming fans back into their buildings, albeit, socially distanced and wearing masks and stuff. But it definitely makes a difference as far as the atmosphere is concerned at their shows. So that's a pleasant surprise. WWE has no actual fans for their shows aside from NXT, which is cool. I think the Wrestling Coliseum, or whatever the hell they call it, the Capitol Wrestling Center, I think it's called, is pretty cool. I like that environment. The Thunderdome, I like. It's not a perfect setup, but it has, done wonders for their shows as opposed to like the PC recruits of the fucking at the PC. And doing Raw and SmackDown and pay-per-views at an actual like building as opposed to the PC is, again, a welcome. It's very well done. It's definitely a step in the right direction, at least in my opinion. And we've had the Thunderdome now for over 3 months. It feels like just yesterday they debuted it, and it's now been around for 3 months, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, I think wrestling, it has not been as terrible as people thought it would be. Obviously, again, it's not the same, but AEW is still putting out great content every single week. I really enjoyed the Full Gear pay-per-view. That might have been on par with Revolution, which did have a crowd in Chicago. So that goes to show how great that show was. A lot of good matches right now in AEW. It's far from a perfect product, but, they're still putting out quality content every week. NXT's been doing better. Some of the takeovers have been really, really good. The In Your House special, Halloween Havoc, was fucking awesome. We had TakeOver 31 just last month, which was great too. Raw is still a shit show. Raw would be a shit show even with fans. It doesn't help that there aren't any fans right now. That just kind of makes it worse. But like SmackDown has no actual fans in attendance, and the show has been a lot better in 2020 than it was in 2019. Easily the best show right now since the move to Fox. This is the best period for the Blue brand since the move to Fox a year ago. So that's been cool to see as well. So yeah, I mean, that's really it. I mean, Ring of Honor is also back now. They've been doing shows, and their weekly show has been phenomenal. I love the Ring of Honor what was the Pure Championship Tournament? I thought that was awesome. The concept and the format and the layout of the shows recently for Ring of Honor TV has been great. I know a lot of you probably don't watch Ring of Honor and haven't watched it in a long time, but the weekly show for a 50-minute program every Monday on Fight TV for free, it's well worth checking out. It's also on their website for free every Monday morning. So anyway, I think wrestling has gotten better in the last couple of months as the world has. I know right now is, I think, the worst that COVID has ever been, at least here in the States, which sucks. But there are, you got to pick out the positives and do what you can to stay safe. Again, wear your masks, not go out too much. Don't do anything dumb, stuff like that. I've still been going out and doing some stuff. I was at the mall a couple days ago. I just saw my brother at school. I haven't gone out a shit ton, but you still got to live your life to a certain extent. Unless we go to another lockdown, you got to do what you got to do. But, again, stay safe if you are out, wear your masks. That's really all I can say. But yeah, as far as wrestling is concerned, that's the stuff I would say are the biggest updates. A lot of debuts for AEW. They picked up a lot of people that were, I don't know how far back you haven't been watching wrestling, but there were a shit ton of releases back in April. And a lot of those people have since gone on to cool success and Impact and in AEW, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, I would definitely say slowly ease yourself back into it if you haven't already. Maybe not so much Raw, but SmackDown's been very good. I enjoyed Dynamite. NXT's still a good product. NXT UK is back. It's been a solid product, albeit not must-see. And Ring of Honor has been great, too. As far as the channel is concerned, this has probably been the biggest year this channel has ever had, which is awesome. So as negative as 2020 has been in a lot of different ways, and even including for myself, with everything going on right now, there have been a lot of positives as well. And since May, I've been able to conduct a lot of awesome interviews with WWE superstars, NXT superstars. As of today, November 18th, in 2020 alone, and this only started back in April. When you think about it, coronavirus started in March, and I don't know if any of this would be possible had it not been for the coronavirus, so I'm not saying it was a blessing in disguise, but it has had some upside for me personally. I did not conduct any interviews, I don't think with anyone, in the first 3 months of 2020. Not that I didn't feel the need to, it just wasn't it just wasn't going on. It just wasn't really something I was focused on. I just had other stuff I was doing. COVID hit. The first interview I did in 2020 was with Jim Ross, AEW announcer, obviously WWE Hall of Famer, which was fantastic. We talked for a long time. Interview went up on WrestleRant Radio. The audio of those interviews, of those early ones, aren't here on the channel yet. I will put them up at some point. There's a lot of interviews from years past that I've yet to upload as well, but they will be up eventually. So anyway, I talked to Jim Ross. Then I talked to Brian Quinn from Impractical Jokers, which I've been trying to get for so long. And that kind of gave me more confidence to reach out to more people, try to get more interviews, and it's worked out amazingly well. And again, since then, I've done 52 interviews, with my latest being with Sasha Banks, which goes up tomorrow. Today's Wednesday, so it's going to be going up on Friday, my bad. But, since April of this year, over 7 months ago, I've talked to Jim Ross, Brian Q. Quinn, Triple H, which is probably the best of the bunch. That went up in August, the audio of which is here on the channel. Same thing with the Seth Rollins interview. We talked to Bayley, Big E, NXT champion Finn Balor right after he won the championship. I talked to Keith Lee after he won the NXT championship. I talked to Adam Cole when he was NXT champion. I talked to Karrion Kross. I talked to Rhea Ripley multiple times. I talked to Johnny Gargano multiple times. I talked to Booker T and Sharmell. I talked to Lillian Garcia. I had the chance to interview James Storm for over an hour on WrestleRant Radio back over the summer, which was fantastic. Got to talk to Bobby Fish, Roderick Strong, Montez Ford, Bianca Belair just recently, Kevin Owens, which was great. Paul Heyman was phenomenal. Man, there's just too many to think. Jeff Hardy was an inspiration, has always been an inspiration of mine. So to talk to him a couple of weeks ago was just fantastic. Tegan Knox, Candice LeRae, the list goes on and on and on. All of which, again, all the interviews are right here on the channel. It's been a dream come true. So you can hear a lot of those interviews right here on the channel. But again, not only with the interview stuff, I mean, the channel was already doing well even before that stuff. The pandemic has helped in certain extents because a lot more people are home and watching videos, and gives me some more time to do stuff. Like, for example, I would be out a lot more if the pandemic wasn't a thing. I have gone to all of 1 or 2 wrestling shows in 2020, that being in January and February. And I'm usually out a lot more than I have been this year, so it has given me more time to do that MCU rewatch review series that you mentioned. Had it not been for the pandemic, I probably would have never done that. And Chris has been awesome with that entire thing. It's allowed me to talk to him more often. He's fantastic. He's with Bleacher Report as well. That was a lot of fun. We're doing the Mandalorian reviews right now, and that show's great. Also with the channel, we've done it. In addition to the interviews, obviously we have hashtag AskGSM every single week, breaking down a lot more network content. There's a lot more WWE network content, probably this year more than any other year. And I've broken all that down. The Last Ride documentary I reviewed, which was phenomenal. Just a lot of stuff. Network content. Again, Ms. and Mrs. reviews. Total Bella's reviews recently. Dark Side of the Ring. I have yet to get all those reviews back up. I recorded reviews for that stuff months ago. Just because we put up a video every day this year. Literally every day of 2020 was my goal to upload at least one video a day. And I've done it literally minutes to midnight before, but I've gotten it done. The only time I think a video, this may have happened another time, but we've also done live streams too. We haven't done one in a while, but I was doing live streams in the early few months of the pandemic for Back to the Future, Lilo and Stitch. That video got taken down, unfortunately, due to copyright stuff. So that video is no longer up, but we did post the video on that day before it got taken down. A lot of other miscellaneous content too. So, and I said it earlier, there is no better time to subscribe to this channel than right now. We got content, sometimes 2 videos a day going up with reviews, interviews, Q&As, predictions, and so much more. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. I know that was a long answer, but I had a lot to say there. For the second part of your question, as far as Christmas is concerned, yes, Brandon and I have a history from last year and maybe the year before that, if I remember correctly, about how I am very stringent, very strict when it comes to celebrating Christmas starting on December 1st, at least after Thanksgiving. Okay? This year in 2020, I am willing to give you and everyone else a pass. I don't think I've said that publicly yet, but I'm willing to say that. I know I'm taking this way too seriously, but the only exception is that I was in Home Depot in early or late October, and I was looking for Halloween costumes in the area. And I just so happened to be I wasn't there to get a Halloween costume. I was there for something else. And I saw Christmas trees up. And I'm like, the fuck are they selling Christmas trees for in late October? That's ridiculous. Other than that, though, since November 1st, I'm willing to extend my Christmas. I haven't done any Christmas celebrating yet, but for other people, I probably will still wait until late November, early December. For other people, if you're putting up your decorations, if you're listening to music, watching movies, making Christmas stuff, obviously shopping you start at any time of the year, I think that's completely okay. With the shit show that 2020 has been, I think we all deserve to have a 2-month-long Christmas celebration this year and not just one. Again, I have other stuff going on. I never really got to fully celebrate Halloween in the weeks leading up to it. I did celebrate Halloween itself on the day of, but leading up to it, you like to watch the movies and do certain things. Didn't have much of a chance to do that this year. I did go to Salem, though, Massachusetts, at the beginning of October to kind of celebrate, and that was a lot of fun. We were going to go on Halloween itself, but current circumstances obviously prevented that from happening. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on in 2020, but if there's any positive, it's that Christmas is right around the corner. It won't be the same this year. A lot of my Christmas parties and gatherings have been canceled, which sucks. But you got to do it. It's not going to prevent you. It doesn't stop you from watching Christmas movies and making Christmas cookies and getting people gifts and celebrating online if you have to over Zoom and doing stuff like that. So just hang tight, enjoy the holiday, and enjoy this channel and all the content that we have to provide in the remainder of 2020. We get to John Ritland at Reborn Again from the Twitter machine. Real Honesty with John Ritland. Real Honesty, with John Ritland is his YouTube show. Check it out. Great content. John's first question was, what the hell is NXT doing with the Xia Li storyline? He asks. It seems completely thrown together. That was my initial thought, too. The thing is, I don't hate it. I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm not optimistic. I know NXT... I do have faith in NXT to do the right thing. They don't do sports entertainment nonsense too often. And, when I say sports entertainment, technically that does, technically include stuff like Killian Dane and Drake Maverick and, their kind of dynamic and whatever. They have a good thing going right now, which is cool. But I'm talking about, the Xia Li thing is so over the top. And they haven't exactly booked them to be all that interesting. I am slightly intrigued, but Xia Li has lost a lot lately. And Boa got his fucking ass kicked by Raquel Gonzalez. I don't know if I would have done that per se. It made her look like a badass. did him no favors whatsoever. It makes him look like a complete wuss. So then, like, the old man coming out with the smoke and, like, presenting Boa with something, it's interesting. I don't know if they have an end game for it, which kind of is what my problem with it is. It's just completely bizarre. But maybe it'll end up being worth watching. I like Xia Li. She's someone with potential. Boa, they really have done nothing with since they signed him a year or two ago, I think. He was a part of that breakout tournament, but he was a complete loser. So this might be a better use of him than what they were doing with him previously. But we'll see. I'm not going to completely shit on it just yet. It does feel thrown together, but they've been also progressing this story for weeks now. So there is some backstory. My concern is really with where it's going. If there's no end game and they're just trying to do this to spark conversation and attempt to be cool, then yeah, it's going to be a disaster. But so far, I'm mildly intrigued. I will say that much. John's second question, was it a major mistake to hot potato the WWE title just to pad Randy Orton's number of reigns? So here's the thing. Was it a mistake? I don't know if it was a mistake. Like, I like longer title reigns. I would have wished that McIntyre just held on to the championship. I didn't really see the reason to have Orton win it. I said it after Hell in the Cell. I thought that was a mistake to take the belt off of Randy. I think a bigger mistake would have been to take the belt off of Drew, put it on Orton, and keep it on Orton until WrestleMania. That would have been a mistake. Because maybe they do Orton and Edge part 2, whatever. The second match was great. The first match, not so much. I don't really need to see that feud continue personally, though we know it will. So that would have been a bigger mistake. They can do that match. It just should not be for the championship. Drew should be involved in a marquee match at Mania. I mean, even AJ Styles or someone like that makes more sense for him to lose the title to than Randy Orton. The Randy Orton thing, I think, is just incredibly stupid. There just wasn't a lot of great baby faces on Raw for him to feud with anyway. Keith Lee's kind of in the upper mid-card right now. Matt Riddle's down there. Jeff Hardy's feuding with Elias. So, yeah, it's weird. It's weird. And I'm glad they put the belt back on McIntyre. They probably did that, though, to be fair. It's not like, oh, this Orton thing isn't working. They probably knew from the get-go that it was going to be McIntyre and Reigns at the pay-per-view. What they probably wanted to do was make people second-guess that we were getting that match at the pay-per-view and do the big title change on Raw, because that was the first time that championship has changed hands on Raw since December of 2015 when Roman Reigns beat Sheamus for the title. That's a long time for a title that used to change hands on Raw a lot. It's changed hands on SmackDown quite a bit in recent years. Brock beat Kofi Kingston for it last year on SmackDown in October. The year before that, Daniel Bryan beat AJ Styles for it. The year before that, AJ beat Jinder Mahal for it. We've gotten 3 different title changes on SmackDown itself in the last 3 years, because the title's been on SmackDown this entire time. Did it change hands on SmackDown before that? I'm trying to think. What was the last time before 2017 that it changed hands on SmackDown? Not in 2016, I don't think. It had been a while since the WWE title itself had changed hands on SmackDown, but it had not changed hands on Raw in a long time. So it made for a cool moment. It made for a great match on Raw. They wanted to continue the feud. The thing is that they already had Orton lose 3 pay-per-view matches before he beat Drew, so he kind of had to win the Drew match. They really should not have continued the feud, but I could see why they did it. I wasn't pissed about it. I'm just happy that Drew has the belt back. It's not like, oh, he was in the midst of this historic reign. Drew was having a very good reign, but it's not like, he was about to break the record, and then they stopped like a day before he was supposed to break it. That would have been stupid. But he had held it for 6 or 7 months. He has it back now. Hopefully he holds on to it for a little longer before he loses it again. Yeah, they definitely did it to pad his resume. My thing with it is that if you were going to give Randy the title, why didn't they just have Randy take the title at SummerSlam when he was at his hottest? I think that was the real mistake, was that if you were going to do a title change, which I never really wanted to see Orton as champion, but he was so hot at a certain point earlier this year, and he's still doing good, but he's still doing well. But he was he was a top hot heel over the summer and prior to that point when he was kicking people in the head every single week. Why didn't they give him the championship at SummerSlam? That was when his popularity was at its highest as a heel. He should have won it then. When he didn't, they should have just moved on. Not wait until October's Hell in the Cell. At the very least, give him the belt at Clash of Champions. Not a Hell in the Cell 3 months later when no one cares. That was the problem. So yeah, it definitely was done to pad Randy's reigns. My issue is that they should have done it 3 months earlier and then also end with Drew winning the belt back maybe inside Hell in the Cell. I think that would have been a lot better. His next question. So Dark has Joey Janela versus Marco Stunt. Why? For who? Why are these two even allowed in a mainstream wrestling company? John hates Joey Janela and he hates Marco Stunt. And I totally get it. I really don't care for either guy either. My hate does not go as deep for them as yours does. I don't really give a fuck about Joey. I don't give a fuck about Marco Stunt. The match was fine that they had on Dark. I watched Dark last night. It was a fine match. The issue with it is that Dark sometimes features just random matches that serve no purpose. For example, Thunder Rosa beating, I forgot who it was, Lindsay Shaw, I think her name was. That served the purpose because Thunder Rosa is going for the NWA World Women's Championship tonight on Dynamite. So that helped her build momentum. You know, some of the newer people, like, if they want to give them a strong showing, like the TNT tag team, they had a good match with Jurassic Express last night, I thought. Didn't really serve much of a purpose, but it gave them a chance to shine. That match with Joey and Stunt was just a complete waste. It wasn't terrible. They're not focusing on Joey, nor should they. They're not focusing on Marco, and nor should they, thank God. So what was the point of the match? Just to kill time. On a 13-match show, unless you're scrambling to fill airtime, you should not be doing Joey Janela versus Marco Stunt. Save that for those shitty-ass GCW shows. I don't watch the fucking shows, but like some of the dumb stuff they do on those shows is just completely mind-boggling to me. I don't get it. Leave that shit for those shows. They didn't do anything dumb last night. Again, the match was fine. I just didn't see what purpose it was supposed to serve. Speaking of Dark, his next question was the waiting room segment on Dark a total embarrassment, or am I just being too harsh? I saw a lot of negative reaction towards the segment, and again, I totally get it. It was not a great segment. My thing with it was a few different things. It was definitely dumb. I will say that right off the bat. I didn't love the segment. A few things I like about it. One, Britt Baker's a great talker. She made the most of the material. It wasn't the greatest. I think it's cool for her to have her own talk show. I think another cool thing is to separate, kind of break up the monotony of all the matches on Dark. They should have at least one talk show on the show every week, or a promo, in-ring promo. Break up the formula a little bit better. Show some character profiles. I know I was talking to Jared about this on Twitter. I think his Twitter name is Ferens53. You know, bring back the, what was it called? The Undesirable to Undeniable series. They were doing that with, like, I think Big Swole, if I'm not mistaken. They did it with QT Marshall. And it was really well done. It gave you, like, definitely Aubrey Edwards. They did it with all these people where it went, like, I think Justin Roberts too, from people that were, like, no one really cared about them. And then you watch these profiles and it's like, oh, I got to know them better. Like, now I care. You know, so bring back that stuff. The waiting room isn't a terrible idea. It did have its moments. I enjoyed it more than most. I didn't love the segment at all. It was definitely interesting, for lack of a better term. I don't know if an embarrassment is the right way to describe it, but the Hybrid 2 promo wasn't great at all. It was there to further the feud between them and SCU, so it was fine. My biggest knock against the segment is that it went too long. It was like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. It felt like 10 minutes. It should not have been as long as it was. Other than that, I think it's nice they're doing more talking segments on Dark. They clearly have a lot of, kinks to work out, or nicks, or whatever it's called. They have a lot of bugs to work out of the whole process, because it wasn't a great segment, but it is a step in the right direction, in my opinion. At noob_n_code 1991, with both Ethan Page and Taya Valkyrie's contracts in Impact Wrestling expiring soon, where do you think they will go next? It's a good question. I think they'll stay right where they are. Of the two, I don't see Ethan Page going anywhere. I mean, the thing with Ethan and Taya, which is interesting, both of them have record-setting reigns as champions in the company. Ethan Page and Josh Alexander as the North are the longest-reigning tag team champions Impact has ever had. They've beaten every team, and Taya is the longest-reigning Knockouts champion the company's ever had. So, theoretically, they could leave. They've done everything there is to do in Impact. The North won the belts back at Bound for Glory. They lost them a month later to Gallows and Anderson a couple of weeks ago. I think it was actually on Saturday. So I could see them leaving. It depends where they go, though. Like, AEW's tag team division is stacked, but it's almost too stacked, to the point where if they were to go to AEW, they're not like an FTR where they would make an immediate impact and get a push right off the bat. They would just get lost in the shuffle. So either they stay where they are, and Impact has done very well by them. I still feel like, I need to see the North leave. I'm not at that point, even though they have beaten everyone. Because they just lost the Rascals, too, you got to remember. So Impact has got to be doing everything to hold on to the North. which have been like kind of a staple in that division for as long as they have. They lost the Rascals. They shouldn't leave. They shouldn't lose the North as well. So I don't think they're going anywhere. I guess they could go to WWE. That wouldn't be a bad fit. If they were the North, they were a tag team, then yeah, I could see it if they were booked the right way. Taya is an interesting one. I would like to see her in WWE. They have a lot of women as it is, just a lot of women they're not doing anything with. She could do well in NXT. I say WWE because I think she was under developmental contract with them years ago, like before Lucha. It didn't work out. She's not your typical, like, what you would expect from a WWE women's wrestler, which is why I think she would do well, because she's not like another, yeah, she's blonde, but she doesn't look like Lacey Evans. She doesn't wrestle like Peyton Royce. So she's completely different, which is why I think she might do well. She reminds me a lot of Beth Phoenix. And with her husband being there, that being obviously John Morrison, that could, that could be a sign that she might be headed there at some point. She, more than Ethan, I could see leaving the company. Well, you said Ethan Page. What about Josh Alexander? If his contract isn't up, then Ethan's not going anywhere. But with Taya, I could see her leaving. Again, she was already Knockouts champion for a very long time. She's feuded, I think, with a lot of the women there, most of the women they have under contract. There's just really not much more there for her to do. So I would like to see her go to WWE. AEW, she could do well there, I think. She might be better fit in AEW than she would be in WWE. I'm just thinking if her husband's in WWE, why wouldn't she go there unless the company just was absolutely not interested? I could see Taya leaving. I think ultimately my guess is that they both stay. But if they were going to leave, I could see Taya in WWE and maybe the North as well. Just because AEW, they could use Taya more than WWE. But her husband's there, so that's why I would see her following kind of in his footsteps. At Iwagu91 from Twitter, do you feel this Sunday will truly be The Undertaker's final send-off? It's really hard to say. I want to say it is. Part of me is just saying that because I want it to be. Will it actually be? I'm very skeptical. Because it feels like, at least if you just watch Raw and SmackDown, I know they've done a lot for Taker on the network, on their YouTube channel, on the website, on social media, everywhere. But they haven't really done a lot on TV to make this feel like this is the last time you'll ever see Undertaker. I know they had that whole tribute episode of SmackDown to him over the summer. They did the whole Boneyard match and whatever. I'm skeptical. Just knowing this company's track record, I have a feeling that like Baron fucking Corbin's going to come out, or a Sami Zayn or something, and they're going to interrupt Taker and then build to a match at the next pay-per-view, or The Fiend or something like that, because The Fiend currently does not have a spot on this show. He doesn't have to be on the show. He wasn't a Hell in the Cell. He wasn't at Clash of Champions, but that could be a spot for him on the show, is by interrupting Taker and then popping up there. So yeah, I don't think it, I want to say that it is. Part of me says that it won't be. I guess we'll find out, but I'm excited to find out come Sunday to see what they do for his final farewell, as they're calling it. Do you think it was a mistake for WWE to book Randy Orton to win the WWE title at Hell in the Cell? I mentioned this earlier, but it was a mistake in that if they were going to do it, they should have done it at SummerSlam. It's not like, oh my God, what a joke to put the belt on this guy. Randy is Randy Orton. It's not like a Jinder fucking Mahal. Like, it wasn't a mistake to put the belt on him. I wouldn't have interrupted Drew's reign, but he won it back 3 weeks later. So it's not like Drew had to wait 3 months to get it back, and now he's a lot colder than he was when he was champion. He's completely fine. Orton's fine. They should have just had Orton win it at SummerSlam. That's all. Or just keep the belt on Drew, but then Orton would have suffered 4 pay-per-view losses, and they're probably not going to do that. So, I just think timing is everything. His next question, considering the Allure's attack on Quinn McKay, is it setting up her to finally have a match with them at Final Battle, perhaps, especially Angelina Love? So he's referring to Ring of Honor stuff here. I don't know when that took place. I watched the weekly show. I don't think it happened. Did it happen on Ring of Honor TV? I must have missed that. Maybe it happened on their social media channels. I don't know. I didn't know up until a couple of months ago that Quinn McKay was a wrestler. She posted a tweet like talking about, oh, I'm opening for bookings or whatever. And I'm like, I didn't even know she was a wrestler. She's been with the Ring of Honor now for maybe a year or two in like this Ian Riccaboni-like role where she's like the host of Ring of Honor TV. She's good in that role. I've never seen her wrestle before. But listen, Ring of Honor's women's division fucking sucks. They have like no women. I know they've been off of TV for months now. They have the Allure. Angelina Love just has almost regressed in the ring. And Mandaleon isn't really that great either. They lost Kelly Klein. They've lost a lot of women. Tasha Steeles was doing some dates there. She's gone. They signed that Maria Manic woman. She just does not do a lot for me at all. So they could use Quinn McKay probably more in a women's wrestling role than they can in her current role as a host, even though she's done that role very well. So maybe they are setting up for Quinn McKay versus Angelina Love at the pay-per-view. And if so, then I'm not opposed to it. We'll see we'll see what happens. Angelina Love's matches are not the greatest, but we'll see what goes on with her in this apparent feud with Quinn McKay, because it could have just merely been a one-off. His last question here: what are your thoughts on Jonathan Gresham becoming the first to hold the Ring of Honor Pure Championship since Bryan Danielson, a.k.a. Daniel Bryan, last held it 14 years ago? I'm pretty sure you asked this last week, or the week before. This question seems familiar to me. But anyway, maybe you just asked about the tournament. But I think it's cool. I would have had Tracy Williams win. Jonathan Gresham has already won half of the tag team champions. Gresham could have won it at any other point. Like, he didn't need to become the first champion in 14 years. Tracy Williams doesn't really have a lot to do right now. And he's already lost every other title shot he's had in the company. So I really do think Tracy should have won. But it was a great match, and like I said earlier, that entire tournament was tremendous. It was very well booked, it was well handled, and that all the matches were very well wrestled. So it was a breath of fresh air on a show that has really felt dull for the last year and a half now. At E13A from Twitter, do you remember The Miz's post about main eventing WrestleMania 37, or else he will retire? Do you think he'll cash in Money in the Bank at the end of WrestleMania? That is a great question. I remember it. I completely forgot about it. Miz made that comment, I want to say in like January or February. It was right when they announced that WrestleMania would be in Los Angeles, because obviously he's from the area. I think he's lived there for a long time. I watch Miz and Mrs., and they talked about this on the show. They moved to Austin, Texas for like probably not even a year, and then they moved back to LA. So they're back in LA. The thing with that post was like, okay, he was in LA. You know, he lives in LA. He's Hollywood Miz. Like, I understand that. But also, by WrestleMania 37, it would have been 10 years, almost to the day, since he main evented WrestleMania, 27. So almost exactly 10 years later, and he won that. At the time, it was a joke. Miz wasn't doing anything then. He's hardly doing much now. Yeah, he's at the forefront of Raw as Mr. Money in the Bank. He's lost almost every fucking match he's had in 2020. The guy's been an ultimate loser since he lost the SmackDown Tag Team titles. So I love The Miz, but at this current point, him main eventing WrestleMania is fucking laughable. And the thing is that WrestleMania probably won't even be in Los Angeles. So it was obviously a joke what he said back on Instagram earlier this year when they announced the event for WrestleMania. And the only reason why he said that was because it was going to be in LA. It's not going to be in LA. Very likely, as of right now, no official change has been made, but it's either going to happen in a building like the Thunderdome or something like that, or in Florida, or both. I mean, the Thunderdome is in Florida. But it doesn't look very likely with all the current restrictions in California being the way that it is right now, that it's going to hold WrestleMania at that building. I don't think that building's even going to be done come March of next year, because it was still under construction. It was supposed to be done by the summer. I don't think it's definitely not done now, I don't think. So no, I don't think he should cash into the end of WrestleMania. This is not fucking WrestleMania 31 with Seth Rollins. It's not the same thing. Yeah, no thanks. Just I love The Miz. It would be a cool moment for me as a fan of his. But unless they really amp up his push in the next couple of months, which I don't expect to happen, I feel like he'll attempt to cash in that contract, maybe even as early as next week on Raw. On the exact 10-year anniversary. The exact 10-year anniversary of Survivor Series, but I don't know. I just feel like it would make more sense to him to attempt to cash in either on Sunday or on Monday, and then he immediately loses the chance, or either just loses the title shot or whatever. But I think it makes more sense than him cashing it at WrestleMania. It's both too far away, and I don't think he would. He's not going to win anyway. So why bother? His second question: what's going to happen this Sunday at WWE Survivor Series? Well, we're getting the whole brand supremacy shit that I could not care less about personally. It could be a decent show. Don't get me wrong. I mean, a lot of matches could go either way. There are a lot of good matches on paper. I'm just going to say that right now. Street Profits and New Day, first time ever. Should be a very good match. Asuka and Sasha, far from the first time ever, but they always have great chemistry. Drew and Roman is probably the match I'm most excited to see on the show. You have Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley. I don't really care about it, but it could be decent. Probably better than their Money in the Bank match 2 years ago when Sami was hurt. That was the last match. That was actually the last match that he had before he had to take time off and before he came back. And then we also have the 2 Elimination Survivor Series matches and Undertaker's appearance. So I am looking forward to it. I'm not really all that excited for Survivor Series. It's a show on paper I just don't really care about. But it could exceed expectations sometimes with these shows. I don't really give a fuck about. It ends up exceeding those expectations, and that's what I hope happens with Survivor Series. But what do I think will happen? I think Taker is probably going to be interrupted. Whether it leads to one more match or not, who knows? But he'll probably be interrupted, even though he shouldn't be. I don't know, like results-wise, there's no title matches on the show. NXT really isn't, it's not involved at all this year. I could see Roman beating Drew. Roman has not lost since he came back, so I could see Roman beating Drew. I can see Asuka beating Sasha. I can see Bobby beating Sammy. And I could see, what was the other one? Street Profits getting the big win over New Day. Those are my predictions as of right now. For the men's and women's elimination matches, I'm going to go men for Raw because they've teased so much tension that it would make you think, okay, they teased so much tension, and that's because they're going to win. And SmackDown, they really haven't focused on the whole team thing at all. Unless their final mystery person is like the fucking, like Goldberg or something, then it doesn't, I think they're going to lose. So that would mean I think that the women will win for SmackDown, as they probably should, with not Lana, but Bianca being the sole survivor. I think Lana as the sole survivor, which is very likely, by the way, would be fucking dumb. At Jeremy8911, thoughts on the rumors that the Rascals are signing with the WWE. Did I mention this last week? I thought I did, but I don't think I had time. No, I didn't, because the Rascals were announced as leaving Impact. And then I think the WWE rumors started up after I recorded last week's episode. So I like it a lot. And I discussed this on WrestleRant Radio last week. It's here in a clip on the channel. But I like the move a lot. So they were an Impact for 2 years. They had a great send-off last night. If you haven't seen the match, check it out. It's Rich Swann and Trey Miguel versus Dez and Wentz. Very good match last night on Impact. Very emotional send-off for a team that's only been there for 2 years. But it was a good send-off nonetheless. So they never won the tag titles, which never made any sense to me. How they never won the tag titles is beyond me. AEW might be a better fit for them. Like, I hate the whole, like, fucking, we're stoners, 420. I think that's just so stupid. Like, I know that's RVD's thing and Matt Riddle, but it's not like their actual gimmick. Like, it's a part of their character, but they're not, like, shoving it in your face where they have a fucking bong sound in their intro, which I think is so stupid. They couldn't do that in WWE, obviously, but they shouldn't have to rely on that shit. As wrestlers, they're great. And I think they're a great fit for NXT. NXT needs more tag teams. AEW is set. In AEW, I don't think they would, not that they wouldn't go far, but there's already so many tag teams they're signing and stuff like that they already have signed. They would get lost in the shuffle like that. They'd be on Dark every week, possibly, at best. So I just don't see that happening. I mean, they could, and it would be cool, but I think they would just get lost in the shuffle like so many other teams have. I think them going to WWE is the better fit. NXT needs teams. Them versus Grizzled Young Vets at some point could be a lot of fun. Them and Undisputed Era could be a lot of fun. Lorcan and Birch, Breezango, Dane and Maverick. There's a lot of teams there for them to face, but they also need more teams. The division is not very stacked on paper. Imperium's another one. So I hope they go to WWE as the rumors have suggested so far. At Scarlet One, their first question, best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars from last week. So really nothing I didn't like about NXT. I didn't think it was an amazing show, but I thought it was a pretty good show overall. I liked the Gargano-Leon Ruff stuff. I wouldn't have taken the belt off of Gargano, but I thought it was a cool moment. I think Leon Ruff is very good. If they make it a joke, then it was a mistake, but for a moment, I thought it was really cool. I thought Santos Escobar and Jake Atlas had a pretty good match. The main event with Lorcan and Birch versus Breezango was also great. From Dynamite, I liked the Brandy promo. I thought the Cody Jade Cargill promo was a fucking mess. I thought that was just trash. But when Brandy came out and cut a promo for like 30 seconds to a minute, I thought that was great. Easily the best work that Brandy's ever done. And I know that's not saying much, but it's a fact. That's the truth. Natural Nightmares versus Butcher and Blade, I thought was a very good match. A feud I didn't give two fucks about, but as a bunkhouse just bloodbath, I thought it was great. The Inner Circle segment I thought was also very entertaining, with MJF and Wardlow being inducted into the group. And then the main event, followed by the return of Pac, was also great when Pentagon took on Rey Fenix. Again, the only things I didn't like that were the worst were the Cody Jade Cargill promo. Yeah, Jade stands out with her appearance and whatnot, just, the way that she's built and what she stands out with like her colored hair and whatever. She feels special. But on the mic, she's terrible. And in the ring, I've heard she's green. So I really hope there's not a plan to push her right out of the gate, because it's not like, oh, she's a star. I mean, maybe she looks like one, but she doesn't come across as one whenever she speaks. I didn't love that. And then also Tay Conti versus Velvet. Red Velvet was just not a very good match. They both, Velvet's not terrible, and Conti also not terrible. She has more potential, in my opinion. Just not a very well-worked match, kind of sloppy, and they need more stuff for the women on Dynamite. And that was all that we got from the women on the show, aside from the Jade Cargill Brandy stuff, which is a complete joke. Thoughts on Zelina Vega's release? I was shocked. It definitely has something to do with the whole Twitch thing. From what reports have suggested, I think WWE confirmed this to Sports Illustrated, that it had to do with how it was like a breach of contract. They said you can't do like Cameo and Twitch and stuff like that. And she opened an OnlyFans account. And they said they couldn't, that she couldn't do it. She did it anyway, and she continued to use it. And they released her. I mean, that seems pretty, it makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense is for them to have the edict that they should get rid of all that stuff. That, I think, is stupid. That's a whole other issue that I think I've discussed here on the show before, with the whole Twitch thing and third-party nonsense. It's stupid. Obviously, in her eyes, in their eyes, she's expendable. So, like, if Randy Orton did that, or Adam Cole, or someone like that, they wouldn't fire them. They would figure out some other course of action. Vega, they wanted to send a message with her, and she's probably, she supported that, she tweeted that she was in support of unionization, but she was probably pretty vocal about it behind the scenes. They probably got wind of it and let her go. The same thing happened with Miro. He talked about it on the Talk is Jericho podcast, that he was in support of unionization. And that wasn't the sole reason why that let go of him, but that was probably a big factor, that he was starting to get that talk going, and then they let him go. So it sucks. It's not like it's a major... So I saw these people tweeting, oh my God, what an amazing talent. I like Zelina Vega a lot. I really do. And I'll answer at Misdemeanor 6's question from later on in the episode. I'll just answer it right now. They said, if Zelina Vega ends up in AEW, do you see her being a manager, which she's good at, or a wrestler, an underrated one for me? That's what they said, not me. Vega is a good talent. She's a very good talent as a talker. She was a great manager for Andrade. Why WWE bothered to break her up from Andrade and Garza, specifically Andrade, I have no idea. I thought that was dumb. As a wrestler, I have never seen, in the 10 years that she's been wrestling for, that I have seen her in TNA and now in WWE NXT, I have never seen a single above-average match that she has ever fucking had. I've never seen anyone say before recently, not even saying that these people are saying that she's a great wrestler, but people were talking her up like they let go of like Becky fucking Lynch or something like that. The circumstances in which she was released were shitty, obviously. But to suggest that she could be like this breakout women's wrestler in WWE or even outside of the company is just laughable to me. I mean, as a manager, sure. I think she's a great manager, and I'm not really sure who they would put her with in AEW. AEW already has a lot of fucking managers. They brought in Vicky Guerrero, who has been a complete waste. I mean, Vega and Nyla Rose, and I don't really think Nyla Rose needs anyone, but like, that would be entertaining, I think, more than Vicky Guerrero, who's been played down that role for years now, for like a decade and a half. I think that would just make more sense. So anyway, she's a great manager, but she's not like the greatest manager of all time. It's not like they let go of Bobby the fucking Heenan or someone like that. And as a wrestler, she's just not very good. You called her underrated. I have never seen her have anything resembling like a very good match. The matches with Asuka was really where she should have broken out and had this standout performance. I didn't see that at all. I just saw a pretty basic match that Asuka won. And it wasn't a squash either. It was a pretty competitive match. She's not terrible. She's better than Lana, but it's not her strong suit. I guess she could go to AEW and do decently for herself, but I don't really give a fuck about her as a wrestler. I really don't. As a manager, I think is really where she shines. So they could bring her in, put the title on her. I don't really think that's a good idea. She's been in Impact before. If she goes to Impact, maybe forms a tag team with Sarita, who they let go of earlier this year. They kind of reform and win the tag titles. I think that'd be cool. Do I see that happening? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that. She might do well in Impact, but again, she's just not a great wrestler. So this whole like, oh, what a major loss for WWE. They're not going to miss a fucking beat. They're not going to miss a beat. She was barely on the show after they broke her away from Andrade anyway. So it's not like, oh, SmackDown is drastically different without Zelina Vega. If they let go of one of the 4 horsewomen or Asuka or Bianca or someone like that, I would be like, okay, why would you let go of someone with that much potential? She really didn't have a lot of potential as a talker. I'm sorry, as a wrestler. As a talker, she's great. And they used her in the manager role, and they could have gone further with that than they did. But as a wrestler, I just don't see it at all. Let's see. Thoughts on Drew McIntyre's entrance on Raw and the sword reportedly being Vince's own. That's not even reportedly. Drew McIntyre said that himself. I think he told Ryan Satin of Fox Sports that it was Vince's sword, which is hilarious. Surprisingly, unsurprisingly, I think that's just an amazing story, which, again, for some reason just does not surprise me at all, knowing Vince and how he is and whatever. But anyway, yeah, no, I thought that was cool. I like the entrance. I like the touch. Like, he kind of brought him back to his roots, and now Sheamus can claim that was what helped him win the championship, and now he might be begging for a title shot at some point. I want to see Drew and Sheamus. I think the segments on Raw in recent weeks have been good. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. And I thought the entrance was badass, and I like the sword too, so props to Vince for, no, not literally props, which is what that was, but, you know, big kudos to Vince for bringing that sword to the show, because I thought it really added to his entrance, which looked great. Does Asuka feel like a mid-tier or a top-tier superstar on Raw? Was their last question. She is a top-tier superstar. She feels like a mid-tier superstar, at least recently. She's really felt like a mid-tier superstar, I would argue, since after SummerSlam. After the Sasha and Bayley stuff ended, and now it's pretty clear the only reason why they featured Asuka as much as they did was because, obviously, Becky is gone for one. Charlotte took time off in June. But also because of Sasha and Bayley, which have dominated. I mean, they've been the biggest thing for the women's division all year. There's not even a doubt about that. They've been the best part of the women's division all year in WWE. So Asuka is great, and she has reigned as champion for the better part of the year, since May. The problem is that they haven't done anything with her since the Sasha and Bayley feud wrapped up. She's faced Mickie James and Lana, Zelina Vega, and all these people, all people that just are lower on the totem pole. I like Mickie a lot, but the match wasn't great. It was good. We haven't seen Mickie since. Lana's a loser. Zelina Vega's a loser. I don't get it. I just don't get it. And then right now, she's kind of taking a backseat in the whole women's tension with Nia Jax-Lana is the biggest feud for the women right now on Raw. What the fuck? They have all these talented women on that show. Lana sucks, and Nia's even worse. Shockingly. I mean, actually, I don't know about that, but they're both terrible. The feud sucks. I don't give a fuck about Lana falling through tables. It doesn't make me want to feel sympathetic towards her. I don't give a shit. Asuka deserves a bigger role on the show. They could have her feuding with Lacey Evans. They could have her feuding with Alexa Bliss at some point. They could have her feuding with Peyton Royce. She could be feuding with Shayna fucking Baszler, who should not be the tag team champion anyway. She could be feuding with all these different women, and she's barely even on the fucking show. What a disgrace. Final question comes from @misdemeanor6, their second question, or their first question. The Zelina Vega one was their second question. They asked, do you think Aleister Black might follow his wife out of the WWE door in support for her? He might. The report from WrestleVotes, which, as I've said before, is very accurate more often than not, made the note that Aleister Black probably not due to this. I mean, the firing and everything happened on Friday. I'm sure that this didn't happen on Friday. This probably happened leading up to that. That he asked WWE if he could move back to NXT, and they said no. Which, to me, I understand you don't want to lose everyone at NXT, people like Finn Balor. He's not as valuable as Balor. I mean, he could be, and he should be, but he's not at the moment. So with Black, he should be back in NXT maybe just because they've done nothing with him on the main roster in 6 months. He's not buried by any means, but the heel turn didn't exactly work out. He tried to reinvent his character. We barely saw any of it. I don't know. It just feels like in NXT they could use more fresh faces. I know he was only there a year and a half ago, but you know, the Undisputed Era, Gargano and Ciampa and Dream have been there for fucking ever. They need more fresher faces on that show, and he could help with that, I think. And the matches he could have with Balor and Gargano again and those people like that, I think it'd be a lot of fun. So anyway, yeah, I think him back in NXT would be cool. Could he leave the company? It's possible. It's clear they don't really see him as a priority, but they also don't want him to leave the company. And it's not like, oh, we'll just grant you your release. I could see him leaving, definitely. I mean, it's not like he's a world champion where it's like, oh, they won't let him go. He's clearly not that much of a priority. He's not buried, but again, he lost his undefeated streak. He was off TV for a little while, came back with the eye injury, which was dumb. The feud with Kevin Owens never really went anywhere. And now he's just been doing nothing. He got drafted to SmackDown, and we haven't seen him since. He didn't even bother to qualify for Team SmackDown at Survivor Series. The fuck is that about, you know? So I don't know. I just think with Black, he could leave. Do I see it happening? No. Would I be surprised if it did? No. I think he's just better off in WWE. I think him in AEW would be cool, but you can't let everyone go to AEW. People like Miro, who's in a fucking tag team with Kip Sabian, are going to get lost in the shuffle. I think right now AEW is pretty packed. They don't need any more people like a Black, who I think would just get lost in the shuffle right now. He's not that big of a name. He's a big name, but he's not like a Jericho or something where they would have to push the guy. Him, not so much. So I would rather he just stay where he is. He's barely even scratched the surface of what he could do in WWE. So I hope he stays. Could I see him leaving out of support for his wife? Sure. But I really don't think he's as good of a fit anywhere else in wrestling right now than he is in WWE. Despite the fact they haven't booked him amazingly well, I just see him getting lost in the shuffle in AEW. Impact's not a great fit. Ring of Honor, that's a big step down for him. New Japan, maybe, but is the travel thing still an issue? I guess. I don't know. I would rather just see him stay right where he is, if not move to NXT. If not, return there for a little bit and do what Finn Balor's doing right now. And that's it, guys, for episode 364 of #AskGSM, here today for Wednesday, November 18th, 2020. 8 days out from Thanksgiving. We are having next Wednesday's pre-Thanksgiving episode go up as usual, per normal. So send in the questions now by tweeting me on the Twitter machine with the hashtag AskGSM at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually, keyword usually, because I forgot to do it last night, put up on the website. If not on the wall itself, you can drop a question there as well. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. 2 quick notes, guys. Of course, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content, 2 videos a day, every day for the next couple of days. And then also on, tomorrow. So that was my second thing that I wanted to mention too. But not tomorrow. I keep saying tomorrow. It's not tomorrow. I keep thinking today is Thursday. Friday. Friday is when my interview with Sasha Banks goes live here on the channel. Very likely first thing Friday morning. You're not going to have to wait very long at all. It's going to be 8 a.m. I'm planning Eastern time here on the channel. So if you want to be notified, if you're not even up yet, but you want to know that it went up, press that bell button here on the bottom right, I believe, of this video, and you'll be notified every time a new video, in addition to that one, including that one, goes up here on the channel. And if you haven't already, like I said, subscribe. We got the interview with Sasha Banks on Friday. We have these weekly Q&As where I interact with you guys every single week. We have excerpts from my podcast, WrestleRant Radio, go up every single Thursday. We have Ms. and Mrs. reviews. We have Total Bellas reviews. I review Talking Smack. I review SmackDown in audio form every single Saturday. I don't do that with Raw. I do it in WrestleRant Radio. SmackDown gets the shaft on WrestleRant Radio, so I reserve that for its own little podcast on Saturdays. I review Raw Talk, Talking Smack, like I said. Ms. and Mrs. Total Bellas, I mentioned those as well. Every new network special that goes up, Brothers of Destruction, Meeting Paul Bear, WWE 24 documentaries, Untolds, Chronicles, you name it, I review it on the channel. In addition to more Dark Side of the Ring reviews from Season 2 that I forgot to put up, those will be up at some point. Random videos as well. So again, subscribe to the channel. You will not be disappointed. You will not regret it. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll catch your ass down the road.